Football field, something breaks. Ambulances, ER visit, surgery, a brand new wife. That's when life got real. I was newly married and um, decided, a friend of mine and I decided we were going to further our football careers by coaching little kids football, I guess 10 to 12-year olds. And there at practice one day, I was trying to show one of the kids how to run a route, a post route. So I go out and I run the route. I cut into the post and stepped in a divot, and something went wrong. I felt it in my foot. I would say I heard it, but I didn't really hear it, but I felt something. So I kind of hobbled off the field, told my buddy, I was like, man, you're going to have to take over for the day. Went home, didn't think much of it, put my foot up, went to work the next day, actually. And about halfway through the shift, I worked on an ambulance at the time. I just called my supervisor. I said, look, I can't finish the shift. I can't hardly walk on my foot. Went home, and my wife was like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, something's wrong with my foot. And she said, well, did you get it checked out? And I said, no. By the next morning, my wife is like, no, we're going to the ER. And the doctor walks in and says, the bone's overlapping. You need surgery. And that's kind of when it hit. Wow. I'm just married, been married 3 months. Um, my job requires me to be on my feet and be able to move. That's when it really hit me with responsibility. Hey, you're married now. It's not just you. You've got other responsibilities. Sean, what about you? Have you had one of those situations in life that you just weren't expecting, and all of a sudden responsibility comes and it hits you in the face, basically?
Well, I would say the first time responsibility really, when I really understood what responsibility was when I went to live with my grandparents on a farm. Farm life is unique. It requires not just sun up to sun down, but it requires 24/7. It was an eye opening experience for a 13-year-old kid to go from just chaos and not really understanding or even knowing what responsibility was to, well, now you're working on a farm, you're living with your grandparents, there's expectations, and when expectations aren't met, then there's consequences.
Well, I got to thinking about this, and I think men in general often imagine, well, I won't say men in general. I will say, I think I kind of imagined that the responsibility of the full adulthood was going to come gradual. It wasn't going to come all at once. It was going to be, okay, now you're married. Now you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. And it grows over time. And that didn't work out that way.
I've talked about on here before. I was married a time before my marriage now, and that was a 4 year. Um, there was a lot of mistakes, a lot of growth, a lot of things that you look back on them now and you go, man, I really jacked that up. And a lot of it had to do with being ill prepared to handle what, because when you're young, you're just tough, man. You just think yeah, whatever. That's your mindset. I got this. My phrase, I got this. And then you realize that you really don't, and then one thing leads to a second thing, and it just continues to pile up.
Was there a point with you that something clicked Was it after your first marriage? Was it during that time, or you just said, "Wow, this this life thing kind of it's tough."
No, to be honest with you, it didn't really happen for me. I was a, I refer to myself like this. When you looked at me, you would have thought, hey, this is a pretty responsible guy, you know? But I was a responsible child until probably mid to late 40 or mid to late 30s. So even though I did responsible things and on the outside looking in, you would think I was a responsible guy, I really didn't understand, truthfully, I really didn't understand what real responsibility was, like understanding the whole, not bits and pieces here, but understanding the whole. To be honest with you, I didn't really get it until, like I said, my mid to late 30s is when it really all the all the Rubik's cube got lined up.
The people you know that have had those type of things, what have you noticed about how they respond to that stuff? Some of them panic, which is understandable. Some of them kind of go into an emotional withdrawal. Others start blaming everybody and every circumstance around them, and others just start shutting down communication with everybody. Have you done any of those things when you faced responsibilities you weren't ready for, or surprised you, or snuck up on you?
Probably isolation, self isolation. I think that's one of the things that I think that's one of the things that sneaks up on men. They don't really realize they're doing it. Everybody else around them realizes they're doing it, but they have a hard time seeing that one.
When my wife and I were dating, I have been fired from a job one time in my life, and it happened while we were dating. And the reason I got fired is hilarious now that I think about it. But I got fired because I wouldn't stay after work and drink beer with the rest of the guys. That's what the owner told me. I wasn't a team player because I wouldn't stay after work and drink beer with them. But that night, I didn't tell my then girlfriend what had happened. I mean, we were serious at that point, and I was living on my own, so having a job was a necessity. But I didn't panic. I didn't go withdrawal. I just kind of ignored it, to be honest with you. Actually took her out to dinner that night to a real nice place and just told her during dinner, "Oh, by the way, I got fired today." And she was quite surprised.
You can't keep it um, inside, because if you are hit with a, when life throws you a curveball, if you try to stand there and hit the curveball by yourself, there's a good chance you're going to miss, and you're going to miss again, and you're going to miss again. And like I said, things keep, you miss one time, and you miss a second time, and stuff just piles up on you, and then you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, and then you go into what you just said. You go into one of those situations where you do one of those things. So when life throws you a curveball, then you share that with the people that are they're not going to leave you out there with the wolves. They're going to be with you. You might not think it in the moment, but they are.
Maybe the best way to do that is to face it quickly and not sit around and let it fester. And I think when we do that, I know when I isolate on situations like this, my mind goes to a place of imagination of what the problem is, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I've learned over time is face it quickly, face it head on, and keep it as small as I can, because when I just sit there and let it fester and let it grow, then it becomes so much bigger than what the actual problem is. I mean, it just becomes huge.
I used to tell my guys, I had a saying: "Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions." And if they've heard that once, they heard it a gazillion times. And what I meant by that, and it applies to every facet of your life, you're going to encounter problems consistently. It's just what life is. It's Do you have a plan in place? Like, some people may say, well, what's a plan in place for, a catastrophic event? Well, that's something that you may not have a specific plan in place, but there needs to be something in your life to where you are able to fall back on situations. And I know for some people, they may be like, oh, yeah, that sounds all great. Well, no, it's called planning.
How many people do you think live their life like nothing's ever going to happen to me, and they just don't even take the time to consider what a plan might be?
Way too many.
I think my story that I started out with, I think, kind of gave me that understanding early on that uh, things are going to hit you you're not ready for. Things are going to come your way that you don't expect. Uh, so you better be ready. Somewhat, you better have some response, because if you don't have any response, you're just blowing in the wind. So I think a lot of people need to face the reality that things can happen. Maybe you were lucky as a kid in your family, nothing ever happened, but I don't think there's a family out there that hasn't had some type of trying situation. Everybody's faced trials. It's just part of life. I think the you brought up a good point. And that's one of the ones I wrote down was communicating with spouse. And you talked about that. For me, is that something hard for you to do? Do you
Not
have any
not
challenges with that?
now. Not now. When I actually became what I like to refer to as an actual functioning man, when I actually became that, it was amazing. It just became so much better uh, because when you actually become a functioning man that is married and children, then you realize where your place is. And it no longer is about self.
I'll push back a little bit on that. Is there some point when responsibility has to be about self and not putting yourself second? I mean, is there a situation in life of a man, let's say married with kids, where just whatever's going on, he has to say, okay, I know I have this responsibility, but this thing that's hit us, I need to handle this.
So I'll tell you a little story. So my grandfather had the 95-5 rule. That's actually what he called it. And it was 95% of the time, whatever my mama said, Grenade, he was a quiet man. He went along with it. It was just, it was color of this, buy this, that type of stuff. But 5% of the time, Grenade told me that you're going to have to no is no, yes is yes, and you have to handle this. And when I become an actual man and I really understood what that meant, I was like, wow, that works. And it does work because there are times when you have to set aside everything else and you've got to make a call. You've got to make the decision. You've got to do what might not be popular, but you've got to make that call.
And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. In a situation where responsibility is going to sneak up and bite you, something's going to happen, something's going to change in your status quo of life. I think there's a lot of times where men are afraid to step up and make some of those tough decisions.
There are going to be those few times where you're going to have to make the decision, and it's kind of your job. It's kind of what it's part of the gig, man. It's what it is. But the majority of the time, share that responsibility with that woman next to you.
What are some solutions some men should focus on when they're faced with reality hitting them hard? I talked to a guy one time who lost his house in a tornado, and it was literally within 30 minutes of when it happened. And he just looked at me. He said, "What do I do? Do I buy a toothbrush or a washing machine? Are there some pre-planned things they can do?" Kind of, you were talking about, where's the plan in your head?
I think prioritizing your life will help when a situation arises.
Well, I think I have a solution for this. One of the things I wrote down was whenever these things hit you, maintain your perspective, but more importantly, maintain your faith. Because if you're a person of faith or if you're a Christian, you have somewhere to lean on during these trying times. I think it's so important, and anytime responsibility is going to slap you in the face, that your defense is not, run. Your defense is, hey, God, I need a hand here.
Well, when something bad happens to you and responsibility, gut punches you, there is no place to run. That's because tomorrow when you wake up, that's still going to be there.
We could spend 2 hours talking about what you do to prepare yourself for responsibility hitting you. And my answer is always going to come back to the same thing. You need to know who Christ is and have that in your life, because if you don't, I don't know what else there is for you. We named all the things you can do wrong. You can withdraw, you can isolate, you can run, you can hide, you can run down the addiction trail, you can do all these things, but none of those are an answer. And I always come back to the same answer with that one. And this is, I'm not preaching to people out there. I'm telling myself this. That's what I realize. That's my gold. That's my standard. That's my standard response to everything. Is, I just trust God that He's going to get me through it, whatever it is.
That's my default is when I say priorities, it's is my faith in the Lord, number one. He's put a great woman next to me, number two, and then the foundation after that is my children, my church community, um, my brother. I mean, there's things out there that are in place for me to where if whatever comes my way, man, I got people.
Most of us need to stop asking, "Are we ready?" and start uh, saying, "When it happens, I'm going to step up." Basically, don't worry about what's going to come your way, because you can't stop it. You can't change it. Um, it's part of life. You just can't do it alone.
No,
I guess the challenge this week is to think about something that you faced in the past. Did you react the way you should have? Did you run from it? Did you hide from it? Or did you step into it and reach out for the help you needed, or reach deep inside yourself and found a way to deal with it? But think about that, because I think often we go through life and we forget about the things we have accomplished. Sometimes we just need to look back and say, you know what, I did okay on that. I'm not so I don't have so much anxiety about the next thing that comes, because I did okay on the last one.
I'm a proponent of mentally, physically, and spiritually preparing yourself each and every day. And everybody's different on what that looks like. For me, it's reading consistently and constantly. It's prepping my body as I get older, especially, and it's obviously, you know, for me, it's always starts with the Bible. That's what I do every day, and it's working for me, and I think it would work for a lot of people. But you gotta be in it every day.